My brother is 27 years old and I'm a 20-year-old female. I don't want to sound entitled, but I'm entitled to the money he promised me. Our parents had funded his business and he promised to give me my share for my higher education. I can't even ask my parents, they don't have the money because they gave everything to his business. A few days ago I went to my brother and told him that I needed money for my education and I needed him to pay fees and help me a bit with other expenses. He said he couldn't because he used all his money to fund his wife's new business and he asked me to wait a while. I told him that I couldn't wait, it was going to cost me a whole year and he said he couldn't help right now. I lost my cool because my parents gave all their money to my brother and I didn't have a problem with it. I was still at school, we wished he would become successful and help us, and he promised to help me. I told him that he promised me that it wasn't just his money, it was mine as well, and we all trusted him, but now he's betraying me. He should have saved up for me, but he compromised my education and betrayed me and our parents. He still said he didn't have money, he invested all he had in his wife's business. I got so angry I slapped him and said that I didn't need his help anymore and that he considered me dead. He can keep being his wife's slave and do her bidding. He grabbed my hand and tried to stop and talk to me, but I didn't listen to him, so I left. I no longer care about my brother. I thought it was his love that he cared so much about his wife, but now I know he's being used. I'm so stressed about my future. I don't know what to do, but deep down I still care for my brother. He used to help me so much and now I wonder what happened to him. Am I the idiot for slapping my brother after he gave away the money that he promised me to his wife? Not the idiot, but it's your parents' fault as well. They shouldn't have given everything to him, should have given him his share and asked him to get a loan. It's unfair, but your anger should be directed at your parents too. They put all their money into him without securing your future. Focus on finding other ways to fund your education instead of burning bridges. OP, you are the idiot. Did you give him a heads up that you'll need money for at least a few months, or did you go to him and want it immediately? How do your parents survive if they gave all the money to him? You sound foolish to say you don't need the money anymore. You could have asked him to co-sign for a loan and give you the money. If he hesitates, then involve your parents. Anger and rage will not take you anywhere. Think of solutions before ruining your life. Also, not to be rude, but he didn't say no either. He just said to wait a little while. You're 20. You'll survive a year. You do not need a heads up to know that you are in charge of the education of your sister when your parents gave you everything. They owned money-wise for his business to start. Otherwise, they would have given him half of it. You do not need a contract between family or you're not truly family. I think the parents survive thanks to the money they're making working, but they don't have any savings to send someone to university anymore. Again, it is implied. Honestly, slap him again. Then slap your parents. Then slap yourself. All of you are idiots for not talking things out clearly. Get a loan and study. This is a rubbish situation, but you learned a hard lesson. Trust no one regarding money. For context, a month before my daughter married her husband, I filed for divorce from my wife. My wife had emotionally cheated on me for a couple of months and I couldn't really get over it. Now, while the timing wasn't great, I just didn't want to be with my wife anymore and I didn't want to pretend to be happy with her. My wife and I informed our daughter, and we were honest about what happened since our daughter was an adult. However, my daughter was devastated and asked how I could do this to her just a month before her wedding. She said her mom regretted what happened and desperately tried hard to save the marriage. But my daughter said regardless, she understood my decision to divorce, but why would I just do it a month before her wedding and the happiest day of her life? The whole thing was a mess, but my daughter got over the shock after a week. But my daughter was really angry with me, and even though I was invited to the wedding, she withdrew the invitation to walk her down the aisle and asked her uncle to walk her down the aisle instead. It really hurt me, but it was also my daughter's special day, so I didn't throw any fuss. At the end of the day, I was happy for my daughter. She at least did the father-daughter dance with me. However, after the wedding, I gradually distanced myself from my daughter. My daughter understood the reason for it. A year later, my daughter apologized for not asking me to walk her down the aisle. I told her it was okay and there was no reason to apologize, but there was also no reason for us to have a bond anymore. My daughter thankfully understood my decision. It hurt me to say all these things because my daughter looked really sad, but it was time I put myself first. A few months ago, my daughter gave birth to her first baby. Over the past couple of months, my daughter has been calling a lot, apologizing and crying because she wants her daughter to have a bond with me. But the truth is, I just don't care. I feel emotionally detached, and at this stage in my life, I don't want to put effort into someone who betrayed me so badly. Am I the idiot? there was no reason for us to have a bond anymore. You are the idiot. What the absolute what? Because every father only bonds with their daughter to, checking notes, walk her down the aisle. Beyond that one moment, no, there's nothing else to bother bonding over. I can't follow that at all. That's so far out. OP sounds very, I don't know, transactional? I'm trying to think of the right word to explain why this story gives me the ick. I completely see why his ex-wife had an emotional affair and his daughter took her side. He sounds awful. It makes me wonder what his ex-wife's side of the story is. Honestly, I think he's just being very honest that he doesn't really feel anything for his daughter. Like you said, it's transactional. Walking down the aisle with her would be a social pride thing that he wasn't allowed to do, and he's mad about it, which is strong enough for him not to feel any feelings towards his daughter. That means he didn't feel that much to begin with. Yeah, to be honest, I thought OP was selfish not to wait a few weeks until after his daughter's wedding to file for divorce. His daughter has repeatedly apologized and begged even, and he's actively hurting her again and again and again and again. But he's never apologized for the poor timing of the divorce or how he's treated her. Some strong narcissistic vibes are coming off OP. I, 36 male, have been married to my wife Anne, 28 female, for 3 years. Anne is an Ivy League university graduate. Without revealing too many details, she attended a school virtually every American knows by name. My sister Jennifer, 40, attended a different Ivy League school, but one that is considered to be lower in status than Anne's. Jennifer did not graduate. She began suffering from mental health issues during her second year, and so she dropped out. Anne, however, graduated with a degree in philosophy. She works at a law office as a receptionist, making about $40,000 a year. Now, for some reason beyond my understanding, Anne loves talking down to Jennifer. This is particularly odd to me because I didn't even go to college and yet she chose to marry me. I began working as a plumber out of high school and now I own a small business that brings in a yearly profit well into 6 figures. 2 weeks ago, Anne pushed things too far. While we were out to dinner, Jennifer mentioned her time in college in passing and Anne said, "Oh, you mean the backup school that you never graduated from?" This sparked a short argument, but Jennifer decided to be the bigger person and walk away. It was incredibly awkward, but Anne seemed very satisfied with herself. On the drive home, I told Anne I was done paying off her loans. She's been enjoying virtually her entire salary as leisure money, but with her elite Ivy League education, she should be able to afford them on her own, right? Anne threw what could be best described as a tantrum about how they're too expensive, about how she doesn't get paid that much, and about how I'm imperiling her financial well-being. For the last 2 weeks, Anne has been insufferable about this. She won't even talk to me about anything else. She insists that she shouldn't be penalised for over $100,000 over what amounted to a short comment. Am I the idiot here for this? Not the idiot. Anne has an Ivy League education and she's a receptionist. I think we all know why Anne gets off on talking down to Jennifer, because Anne isn't exactly killing it in her chosen profession. And no, you shouldn't be paying off your spoiled brat wife's loans. She's so darn brilliant, I'm sure she'll figure something out. The fact that she claims to have to pay her own loans is penalising, says plenty about her character. Let that sink in. She went to an Ivy League school, got basically a worthless degree, and is now working at a job that someone who went to a community college could fill, and she's talking crap about anyone. It doesn't really matter what school you go to, you can't do much with a BA in philosophy. Technically, Jennifer is probably better off because she doesn't have the same level of debt. OP, she thinks little of you and your family. She's only with you because you're her cash card. She's shown her hand that she thinks less of your family and has no hint of remorse about it. And she seems mean. This is a pretty big red flag she's waving at you. What do you see in her? Because she sounds like an absolute nightmare. The head of the class above me had the self-preservation skills of a turnip. She literally wrecked 2 cars while not even in them because she forgot to put them in park and they rolled across 4 lanes of traffic into a 10-foot ditch. Where was she working? Pizza Hut. I still have more respect for that educated moron than for your wife. My brother, 34, became a widower 8 years ago, and since then he's remained single and has expressed he doesn't wish to date or marry again. He has 2 children, a young teen and a tween with his late wife. For about 4 years now, my parents have questioned why he doesn't try to meet a nice woman or why he isn't finding more lady friends to spend time with, to quote them. His answer has always been he doesn't wish to find anyone else. My brother did attend grief therapy for several years. My parents refused to believe it did what it was meant to because if it had, he'd be remarried long before now, and that's their stance. For a while now, they've been pushier about the topic. They've expressed to him that he should have looked to give the kids a mother figure far sooner, and they told him all the reasons he should have remarried, including the fact that he and his late wife wanted 5 kids. He has 2 but could have more with another wife. He told them he didn't want children with another woman, and he didn't want another wife, girlfriend or lover. They pleaded with him to date at least one woman or multiple women, but to have a romantic life again. I'm in my brother's corner, and I told our parents they needed to leave it alone, and he's an adult who's perfectly capable of making his own decisions. They said he's not doing what's best for him, and I shouldn't be supporting him in martyring himself for the rest of his life, and it's unhealthy to commit to only loving one person when they died so young. They said he had so much life left and he'd ruin the chances for the kids to have a second mom, but he could still grow his family and find another love. I told them they could want that for him and wish it, but they couldn't force it. I told them they need to respect him enough as an adult to accept his choice even if they don't like it. And I reminded them things could change in the future, but it wouldn't be right to force it and it could cause more pain for him and a new partner. After a particularly nasty fight when they pushed him, he said he'd be taking some time and he didn't want to hear from them unless it was an apology. Once my brother was gone, I told our parents they were pushing him away. They started to argue, but I didn't let them finish. I told them I know they love my brother and I know they want what they think is best for him, but he disagrees about what's best for him. And I pointed out yet again that he's an adult. I said if they keep pushing the topic, they will lose him. He'll pull away forever and he won't accept an apology or give them a second chance. He'll shut the door and refuse to see them because they will not let it go. I told them he tries to change the topic so it doesn't end in a fight, but they always bring it back. He said that he tried walking away, but they followed. I told them the next logical step was he'd stop speaking to them, and I asked them if that was really what they wanted. My parents said the way I framed things made it sound as though I wanted him to stop speaking to them. They said it sounded like I'd encourage it. And they said it doesn't allow for their love and concern for him being alone. Am I the idiot? Definitely not the idiot. I'm glad you're supporting your brother in this decision. Some people just don't date after a spouse's death, and that's totally okay. Your brother will continue to heal in his own time, and your parents seriously need to respect that. I'm sure if, God forbid, the shoe was on the other foot, they wouldn't dream of replacing each other either. I'm sorry they can't see past that and respect your brother's wishes. I don't know your family, but from one sentence it sounds like they're coming from a place of, we want more grandkids and we can't have that unless he finds another woman. People can be very clever about manipulation. They can make it sound like concern instead of selfishness. Have you asked them if this plays into it? Are they pushing because they want more? Are they saying any of this to his kids, or are they doing a little backdoor manipulation? Keep supporting your brother. He may not say it out loud, but he appreciates it. A little background. I, 43 female, live with my husband, 45, and his parents, 70 male and female. We bought a house together almost 20 years ago as I grew up in a multi-generational household. My father-in-law was disabled and couldn't work but watched our 2 kids, now 23 male and 22 female. We also have a young male teen. This worked for us. Yeah, we had our differences, but we could always work them out. In 2016, I got really sick. Hospitalized multiple times for 4 or 5 days at a time. I tried to work when I could, but ultimately was diagnosed with a degenerative disease and went on disability. I would live my life with a minimum of 4 or 5 on the pain scale daily and would spike to 9s regularly. I was in bed most of the time, needed help showering, and couldn't stand long enough to cook. During this time, our family was really supportive. They understood our lives had to change. It wasn't until recently I was able to get treatment for my illness. When I was finally able to have surgery after the hospitals opened after the global issue, our youngest son, 10 at the time, stayed with my brother-in-law, 46, and sister-in-law, 45, for a month while I recovered. I had to have a feeding tube and my mother-in-law worked and couldn't help, and my father-in-law was at my brother-in-law's most days. Our son is borderline autistic and takes a lot of care when it comes to school. Our oldest son was in high school and dropped out later that year. We told him he could pay us rent or move out. He chose to move in with my brother-in-law and sister-in-law. This is where it all goes downhill. My brother-in-law comes over the week my son is moving and tells my husband he wants to talk to him where I can't hear. My husband is my best friend and doesn't keep secrets, so they can talk right there. He told my husband that I was a cancer on the family. I didn't work and I was addicted to painkillers. Since marrying me, my husband is no longer a man. At this point, my husband has my back and they get into a shouting match. I was upset and couldn't handle this. I left and went to my parents. We went no contact with them for over a year. Now keep in mind we live in the same town and my father-in-law does childcare for my brother as well. The next year we got an apology. We now interact with them again, but every time we see them, I get upset and I leave as soon as I can. Am I the idiot for not being able to get over this? Not the idiot. I'm also disabled and cannot work, and one of my biggest fears is that I'm a burden to my loved ones. To be told that you're a cancer to the family and that your husband isn't a man because he's taking care of you is a horrible thing. I'm so sorry that your brother-in-law said that. Unless it was the best apology in the world and he's made it clear with his actions that he doesn't think this way anymore, it makes a lot of sense to feel uncomfortable around him. I hope the rest of your husband's family and your own family have been supportive of you. Is the brother-in-law aware of what the in sickness and in health vow means? You might tip into justified idiot territory if you ask his wife that. It sounds to me like someone is telling your brother-in-law lies. I suspect it's your son. I suspect he feels disgruntled, having felt he's either been thrown out or forced to pay rent. I also wonder, because the kids couldn't do anything with you for the past 8 years, they don't see you as a parent but as a burden, as they lost their bond with you. Agreed. Think about it from a child's point of view, or at least a 15-year-old. He was about 15 when OP got ill. He went from being dependent on his mother to having to do everything. In his eyes, he probably grew resentment towards her. Obviously, it wasn't OP's fault to have got ill, but we all know what teens are like and how selfish they can be. Only, he has probably kept the resentment inside and let it build up. Also, when a kid drops out of school, it's at least 50% the parent's fault.